I don't even know what to say. This whole thing is just getting really crazy. I mean, David Wilcock, the guy that I watched on Ancient Aliens for years, he did a live stream, said that he was grateful for every moment he had on this earth and that he was really spooked out about all these scientists and stuff. And then I find out that he went out and offed himself. And I just don't understand. Like, what is this? And then Greg Rogers, the NASA surgeon, he's a scientist also with NASA, and he was the one that told Ross Coulthart that he had seen a disc floating via CCTV, like a monitor, but it was of I don't know if it was a lab or a hangar, but he saw a disc floating, and now he's come out and he's saying that he fears for his life, and he's making an announcement that he's not suicidal and that, he's spooked about all this. There's a pattern here. 2 more NASA scientists died in a plane crash going from South Carolina to Huntsville, Alabama. And it was a father and son. It was actually the whole family. But the father and the son were both scientists working on advanced propulsion. And then you have this guy Lablanc who went missing. He left his cell phone and wallet. When have we heard that before? And his Tesla was parked at an airport for like 4 hours. I guess they tracked him through the location via, something that the Tesla uses for location. I don't think it's LoJack. It was something else. But anyway, that's how they knew that he was parked at this airport. And then the car blows up. And in all these cases, it's the same story. No foul play, all this and that. But it really makes you wonder, like, what is going on here? Like, are these scientists researching something that they aren't meant to be researching? Some kind of technology that they just aren't meant to crack? And, like, what's the control system that's causing this? And I was looking at some patents through, of course, you know me, I do a lot of deep dive researching with the help of AI. And I saw AI directed me to a bunch of patents for things like something called V2K. It's basically voice to skull, and where they can actually manipulate and make you hear things in your mind, not like auditory, but in your mind, so that it appears, it seems like a thought, but it's not really your thought. That's scary. And so I saw that patent. Then I saw another patent for mRNA patents, things that deal with cellular, some type of manipulation with cells, and apparently just craziness, man. And then it took me down the rabbit hole of the whole directed energy weapons and stuff, and these other patents that I was looking at. And I'm gonna do a deeper dive episode on that possibly tomorrow. Today is not the day for that. I just want to show you guys some clips so that you can really get a grasp of the gravity of the things that are happening right now. But I also found some footage from Skywatcher Ireland of probably, dude, this footage is just insane. It has to be like hundreds of UAP just zipping around the sky. And so Skywatcher Ireland is doing some great work right now. So we're going to look at that clip too. But I really just wanted to touch base with you guys. I've been really busy lately, but thank you for all the new subscribers, new viewers. And I always enjoy interacting with you guys in the comments. But without further ado, let's get into some of these clips.
To blow your mind, the 13th scientist, number 13 NASA nuclear engineer, found burned in Tesla after vanishing from his Alabama home last year. I just reported number 12 yesterday, and I'm reporting number 13 today. 29-year-old Joshua Lablanc was not just any NASA engineer. He worked on nuclear propulsion systems, one of the most sensitive areas in aerospace. His body burned beyond recognition, and police confirmed his identity 3 days later after the body was transported to the Alabama Department of Forensic Science. And at the time, his family said they feared he had been abducted and that he had left his phone and wallet in his home at the time of the disappearance. Why are all these scientists leaving their phones behind when they leave? So since he didn't have his phone, police tracked Lablanc down using data from his Tesla Sentry mode and found that his vehicle sat at the airport in Huntsville for hours on the morning of his passing. His family said his trip west was not part of his plan for the day and that uncharacteristically he was not communicating with them. A LinkedIn page for Lablanc says he worked at NASA for about 5.5 years and that he was a team lead for NASA's space nuclear propulsion instrumentation and control maturation. NASA SNP technology.
The final moments of David Wilcock are now coming into focus, and they paint a deeply troubling picture. According to reports from TMZ, Wilcock made a 911 call on Monday morning, just hours before his death. During that call, he spoke about serious financial problems and ongoing health issues. At one point, he told dispatch, quote, "I need to leave. I will be to the left of the house." Authorities say he refused to clarify whether he was armed or planning to harm himself. Dispatchers, meanwhile, treated the situation as urgent. In audio obtained by TMZ, officers can be heard describing the situation in real time, labeling it a potential suicide. Moments later, the situation escalated. As deputies arrived at his Colorado home, they approached with caution. The threat level was unclear, and backup was called in. Just before officers reached him, Wilcock said something else, quote, "I'm sorry to put you through this." And then he hung up. Seconds later, deputies saw him outside the residence with a gun to his head. They took cover immediately, issuing commands to drop the weapon. But then a single gunshot rang out. Authorities say Wilcock shot himself in front of responding deputies. No one else was found on the property after a search. He was pronounced dead at the scene.
The director of CERN is telling that, he says, top scientists at the Large Hadron Collider, LHC, says that the Titanic machine may possibly create or discover on 8th of April for the eclipse previously unimagined scientific phenomenon or unknown unknowns. For instance, an extra dimension. Okay, so I dig then a little bit more and I said, but you have an experiment? Can you describe something from another dimension? And I said, so yeah, what happened? He said, well, an entity came from this portal. I said, okay, I have to find something more because that's not enough. So I said, can you proof? And is there a proof that they bring, that they give something? There's some document. And they said this entity the second time took a scarf. In Portugal, I was invited, and it was a nice dinner of a doctor who was doing the Master of Public Health. So she invited me to see everybody and put me at the table of two physicists from the CERN, one in Geneva, one in Portugal, because there are many other mini CERNs. It's not just Geneva. and I sat at their table, and I was like so happy not to be in a boring table. There's nothing worse than to be at a great party and sitting at a table where you don't have the same vibes and conversation. So I was in the middle of the two, and I kept on as much as I could, because we were 8 at the table, talking about what intrigued me. And I really asked them, to make it short, the two questions that really intrigued me was, what are you doing special there? And how many dimensions? This has intrigued me. I have still not to this day found a real definition of reality that has the same criteria. So I think it is Matsuru, his name. Yeah, he says there are 8 or 9. Yeah. Anyway, I said, so how many dimensions officially are living in the CERN? And they both said 17, very affirmatively. And I said, well, can you give me a document or refer to me, please? I'm taking the pen. I want to write it down. I'm a researcher. I need to check. I would like to know that. It's so important. And they said, oh, no, we don't know. But we know it's 17.
Government understands it represents a form of sentient non-human intelligence. I know that sounds very Star Trek, a la, Gene Roddenberry and Rod's dad's sci-fi series, but it is true. And I want, the American public to be comforted that the universe is teeming with life, it seems, and readily, able to be explored. And the U.S. government does have a lot of information that I think will inspire Gen Alpha and Gen Z and the American populace at large. And it will be a new era. It'll be a little uncomfortable. There'll be some truths that be a hard pill to swallow, but I think it's ultimately a good thing to get this out there. And I think the people of the world and the American public will be very happy to understand their place in the universe, so to speak.
On the same day, it was made public that one Mathew Sullivan was the guy that Jake Barber spoke about that got unalived. And that whole situation, we tried to look for information about it, but there's only like a really close circle that knew this information. I got to give major kudos to Chris Sharp for the recent article that he wrote, because there's a lot of very detailed information about Sullivan and about a general who knew him. And according to this article, Sullivan was part of the UFO Legacy program. And we're going to read the article for you guys. But before that happens, though, I just want you to remember this guy's face and his name, too. About 5 days ago, Representative Eric Burleson gave statements to the Daily Mail about Sullivan. And amongst the things he said were, quote, "Look at Mathew Sullivan's credentials and his experience. He certainly was someone who was read in at the highest classification levels and knew some of our nation's most important secrets. And so did a lot of these other people. The fact that he had been scheduled by the UAP task force, that he had been scheduled to come and speak, after hearing about this tragedy, I felt it was worth looking into. The sudden and suspicious circumstances surrounding his death raised significant concerns about potential foul play and the safety of other individuals involved in this matter. Grudge was helping him come forward as a whistleblower. There's some that came forward that have come forward to try to be public just to avoid any kind of foul play. In a lot of ways, going public can be a protection in and of itself. I do know of at least one individual that did come forward and has been very public and did so because he felt that his life was in danger," end quote. I think that he's talking about Dylan Borland here, because that's a situation that I think fits this description.
Do you have any personal knowledge of people who have been harmed or injured in efforts to cover up or conceal these extraterrestrial technology?
Yes. Personally.
Have anyone been murdered that you would that you know of or have heard of, I guess?
I have to be careful asking that question. I directed people with that knowledge to the appropriate authorities.
Maybe in a, if we could get in a confidential area, SCIF, we could talk about that. But unfortunately, we were denied access to the SCIF, and that's very unfortunate in this scenario.
But I do want to read Chris Sharp's article, because I think this has to be frontline news.
In a groundbreaking revelation, Dr. Gregory Rogers, a former NASA chief flight surgeon and U.S. Air Force major, has come forward to share a long-suppressed account of a UFO sighting he experienced over 3 decades ago. His testimony adds another layer to the ongoing discourse surrounding unidentified aerial phenomena and the government's potential involvement in their investigation. Dr. Rogers disclosed that in 1992, while inspecting facilities at Cape Canaveral, he was shown security footage of what he described as a 20-foot flying saucer. He recalled that the craft appeared seamless, devoid of any visible rivets or seams, and exhibited movement capabilities far beyond our conventional aviation technology. This is a significant assertion, especially considering the technological advancements we are accustomed to today.
Following as well, high-profile American scientist vanishing, turning up dead. Well, this morning, yet another decorated scientist and defense researcher dead in a plane crash in South Carolina last week. Just found out about this. Investigators say James Moffatt was flying his small personal plane. They were refueling. He was with his wife and 2 sons when that plane crashed near the Union County Airport, about 35 minutes south of Spartanburg. The family was traveling to their home in Huntsville, Alabama, to Raleigh when they stopped there. Now, Moffatt was an aerospace engineer. He spent a lot of time as a career Army test pilot. He also worked as a flight crew support specialist for NASA, where he took part in 14 Space Shuttle ISS construction missions. He is now growing in this, or adding to this growing list. This is a photograph now, a picture of all those that have either turned up dead or missing since 2022, actually. Now, the White House taking this matter very seriously. They've launched an investigation. They're trying to figure out if these are linked together. Right now, they have not tied all these together at all. Jan, back to you.
So there you see, the father and son, James and Tony Moffatt, were the two that went down in the plane crash. And both of those scientists were involved with, advanced, exotic technologies that had to do with, space, rocketry. And it's strange that all this, they were flying to Huntsville, Alabama. And, Amy Eskridge told us in 2021 that Huntsville, Alabama was the center. It was the biggest deal nobody was talking about. That this was the place where they were doing all the, crazy research. And that this secret space program was real. And that she was in contact with some of these people involved with the secret space program. And I find it interesting that, one of the latest people to go is David Wilcock. And he told us a lot of these things. And, I feel like Corey Goode was planted into his life to discredit him and to discredit others that was researching the secret space program and all of this, because this is what they do, and it's kind of like guilt by association. So because Corey Goode turned out to be a fraud and a total liar, and, it kind of discredited all the people around him, which I don't feel like that should have been the case. David Wilcock, I read The Synchronicity Key. It was a great book. And I feel like, it's a shame what happened to him. And he was definitely being trolled. He was being harassed. And it's just vicious what's going on right now. And, you have to look at the pattern. Trump says, look, we're going to get to the bottom of this. I'm ordering the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, and Tulsi Gabbard to direct all the departments and agencies to release the UFO file, right? And then what happens? General William Neal McCaslin goes missing. And that was basically the catalyst. Leaves without his wallet and his phone. Just like LeBlanc left without his wallet and his phone. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. Hit me in the comments. Like, subscribe, share it to a friend, share it to 2 friends. See you tomorrow. Peace.